Allies Amplified is a live series by IME Inc. that highlights powerful stories of LGBTQIA plus allies.
Not only are they sharing their stories, but also their journeys and insights to foster inclusivity, support, and most of all, friendship. And now it's time to turn it over to our host at the African Butterfly, Nyemade. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to another episode of Allied Amplified. Again, my name is Nyemade Boiwu, and I am your host this evening. I'm so excited to bring you this great series where we just talk about and talk to some great allies of the LGBTQIA plus community. And I mentioned it in previous episodes, but in case you're new, that's a lot of letters to say every time. It rolls off the tongue after a while, but it's still a lot. So for the most part, we'll just say of the community. And we just know that that means LGBTQIA. Today's episode, I'm really excited about because I am a theater kid, what is known as a theater kid. I did musicals and things in high school. So like anytime I can talk to fellow theater kids, I really enjoy it. And so our topic today is performance, roles, and representation, the importance of allies in advocating for accurate LGBTQIA representation in stage and on the screen. And I have a great guest with me today, Ms. J. Aline Macros. Hi, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And before I speak with her and we jump into some questions, with each episode, we give some facts related to our topic. So our 5 facts for today. Fact number 1, representation has a direct impact on youth in the community. Studies show that positive representation in media can significantly improve self-acceptance, reduce feelings of isolation, and boost mental health among the youth by providing them with role models they can relate to. 2, authenticity matters in representation. When the LGBTQ plus youth feel, or when roles are portrayed by actors in the community as well, it often results in more authentic and nuanced portrayals. Audience and advocates alike call for greater authenticity, as this reduces stereotypes and contributes to more accurate storytelling. 2, underrepresentation of community characters remain a challenge. Community characters make up only a small percentage of roles in mainstream media, despite growing awareness and demands. Studies show that only around 12% of TV series regulars in 2023 were part of the community, indicating room for progress in visibility. 4, intersectionality is often overlooked. Many characters lack intersectional identities, such as being people of color, disabled, or from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds. This means that many individuals with intersecting identities do not see themselves accurately reflected on the screen and on stage. And 5, positive storylines promote acceptance. Media and theater that feature positive, complex storylines of members of the communities have been shown to increase public support and acceptance of the LGBTQIA plus community. This empathetic effect helps challenge stereotypes and promotes understanding across different communities, which is another reason why I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because we all know media is a great medium for having these conversations and showing great representation. So as I mentioned, I have with me today J. Aline Macros. She is a Broadway triple threat comedian, actress, singer, and dancer. She's more than a triple threat. She does all of the things. She has an extensive Broadway credits. She's known for her academic timing and scene stealing roles. There's that tongue twister for you. And she's currently on stage in a show, Drag, why am I now messing it up?
Drag the musical.
Drag the
Plain and
musical.
simple.
And she's backstage right now. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. And those facts were very helpful because I see how important all of those are. So
Yeah.
I was I had to write them down. I was like, oh my gosh, oh my god. Like it just I sometimes I have so many thoughts, so I just had to write them down and
No, and that makes sense. And sometimes when you're part of it, like when you're in the community, when you're doing the thing, you forget like how much of a big deal it is and important to other people.
yes. Actually I get that quite often at the stage door when people are talking to me after. Yes, they enjoy the show and they love it, watching a show. But often I see old students of mine, and they'll tell me, "Oh, what you do reminds me of why I wanted to be in the business," or "What you are doing up there, I never thought I could." And I was like,
Mm,
"I know, we don't see it a lot." So
yeah.
I forget just by doing you, just by doing it,
Yeah.
people notice it, and then it inspires them. So
Yeah.
I don't do it with that intention, but I realize, oh, that is something that actually does happen because that happened to me. Why I got into the business.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. And I always say that too, like as far as like, because I share so much of my life and myself on social media. And it's because like I know the times where like I thought I was weird or something was different about me and I saw someone else talk about it. I'm like, oh, I'm normal. And like the times I've had people message me that me doing it did that for them. And I'm like, oh, I can just literally be myself. And that helps other people who don't realize that
Yeah.
they're normal too in their weird quirkiness.
Yes. I I mean, we could go into I do want to, if you have any questions, but when you talk about authenticity, I've been I mean, we've been on this earth for a while. So I do understand for the new generation getting into the business. They see roles, they think they need to be this or that. And that's how I was. But until I just continued in this business, continued and continued, and then after 15 years of auditioning, I'd realize, oh, I'm definitely not one of those who sing really high. Oh, I'm definitely not one of those who um, is like I am a strong dancer, but I was never going to be in So You Think You Can Dance. I'm not an extremely amazing ballerina. So I started figuring out where I fit in as opposed to being mad that I was not that stick ballerina or the someone who can sing really high or belt like Idina Menzel. Not everyone needs to do that. So once I started figuring out what I can do, that is okay. But what I thought of it as, oh shoot, if I can't sing this high, if I'm not this tiny, if I'm not blonde, they're not going to see me. And then I was unapologetic when I would audition and go, this is me. With a positive attitude though, but coming in saying, this is what I do. I'm really good at this, this, this. Does it fit what you need? If it doesn't, fine. I'll go find something else. As opposed to,
Mhm.
oh no, I didn't fit in. So authenticity is just not just accepting what you do, but it's like, no, this is what I have to do, and this is what I do really so well.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's so important for people to find that and then bring that, as you know, we talked about the importance of people seeing themselves and having that reflection back of themselves and searching for people who look like them or are like them in some way. And that's why having that authenticity
I
for
know.
representation for people in the community, I think is so incredibly important because how else, like if you only see a straight person's definition of a gay person and what that should be like, and their very narrow-minded views of like this is what a gay character is,
Yes.
then you think if I don't fit that role, then I'm not gay enough, or I'm not the right type of gay, or I'm doing this wrong. When really, yeah, there's a plethora of it because they're just humans like everyone else, and it's only the only difference is like what they are attracted to or whatever, right? But like for the longest time, representation was so much like, oh well, if they're gay, then they're flamboyant. Everybody's Jack from Will and Grace, and that's a gay man.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna spill a little bit of what we were talking in the dressing room today, but my my friends were talking about how in clubs there are these parties, and I get schooled, like not schooled, but I'm learning terms, and they were just saying, there are these parties, whatever they might call it, but these parties are where there's a lot of gay people there. Fine, but they would specifically say, but I never fit in because all of them were jacked. All of the guys were like, really muscular. And we were talking about how there are all, not everyone is that way, like you were saying. Not everyone is fully muscular, or not everyone is
I
like
tell if the connection
Jack
is lost on
in.
my end.
Oh no. Uh, but I wanted to absolutely say that I totally understand that there are many different representations, even within the community, like within the community, that you need to see that representation in stories, that they're not always just that same character with that same, especially in comedies, the same joke, because it's not funny just to be, let's say, Asian, or just to be gay. That's not the joke. It's the idea that people are different.
Do you find it hard sometimes to, like, where is the balance in portraying a character? Because stereotypes are
Yeah,
often stereotypes for a reason, because there's a level of truth to them. So
there's
how
an
do you have
absolute
the
level.
authenticity of it without being overly stereotyping?
Yeah. See, I feel like I've made a career of just playing my mom. Does she have a Filipino accent? Yes. But there are so many layers underneath my mom that come along with the accent. So whenever I use the accent, it comes along with the depth of character that my mom is, who's wonderful, but she's feisty and she's angry if anyone judges her. Um, but she does speak with a Filipino accent. Is the accent funny, or is the behavior? I believe it's the behavior that just happens to have an accent. But the accent shows you, um, I think, adds another layer of, oh, this person's not from here, which is fine. But it adds another layer, not just because the sound is funny. My mom over enunciates in English in a Filipino accent because she is mad, but she's not doing it to be funny. She's not mad, but she just wants to prove a point, which is kind of coincident, like ridiculous, because she tries to over announce everything,
Mm.
and then it's like, you actually don't have to, mom, because they understand you. No, they will. She won't. What do you call that? Shorten words. Like, she will try to
Mm.
say she will not say don't, do not. She wants to make sure she sounds like she's speaking perfect English. And like, mom, your
Yeah.
English is perfect in your way. But I understand the worry of doing these stereotypes, but I do believe they come in truth. They're truthful. That's my perception of them.
Yeah. Do you think that there is sometimes pushback, like especially for people writing these roles, because you have theater and screen experience. Do you think that sometimes there's pushback, especially when writing gay or queer or whatever characters, to stick to the stereotypes because it's more easily digestible than to have a more nuanced version of said character?
Yeah. Like one of your points, wasn't it about being complex, right? As
Hmm.
opposed to just being the best friend who's gay. Usually, the best is a gay best friend and a person of color who's the best friend. Like that was the best friend to the white character. Like that's just kind of how it was. That I'd always go in for those roles. So I I feel like when there's more complexity to these characters, then I feel like the writers are doing a better job because they realize they're not just using these different, the quote unquote other, to support the one white lead. And that's what I would always see with shows. I go, oh yeah, there's a lot of people, let's say number wise, that are not white, but the one person in the front is. Everyone else around, they kind of sprinkle in. And I will be honest, in terms of what I get sometimes in terms of a casting notice, it's the breakdown will not say looking for a person of color or anything like that. They'll always say just disregard the breakdown, because I always feel like, okay, this could be my own perception, but it always feels, not always, there are many times I'm called in last minute because they didn't have enough representation in the show. And so it feels like, oh, last minute. It's like, oh, we forgot the last ingredient that we said we were going to focus on, but we didn't. And that's what I sometimes feel as a person getting these auditions last minute that shoots next week, with disregarding what the breakdown says, because the breakdown will not describe me. It'll just,
yeah.
I could just see they forgot one ingredient that they said, oh shoot, we're supposed to, remember we're supposed to do this? We forgot. Can we fix it today?
Right.
Find somebody. Yeah, those are moments, true moments that I've been aware of on my end of like, oh, they forgot.
Do you find that, because I think a lot of us, when we think about like Hollywood and theater and all of that, like we naturally think that it would be the most accepting of people in the LGBTQIA community. Like you think of the flamboyant people in theater and Jacks and all of those people in Rent and things like that. Do you feel that that is accurate, or do you think that there's almost a same or an unacknowledged level of a lack of acceptance within the theater Hollywood world? Like, do we only think of it as like this happy rainbow land, but really they have problems too, or is it pretty happy?
Yeah, I feel like again, this is just my own opinion, because there's so many things are involved in terms of putting up a show, especially in film and television, all the cooks and the network and everything like that. When it comes to theater, there are a handful of people, producers, writers, but when it comes to film and television, there's so many people high up that I feel like they're I don't know, unless there is someone who is their specific job is to focus on diversity or just being aware of it. I don't think that's their priority. I think their priority is money. So I don't think it's that they don't accept people, but I think that's not their priority. And I don't take it personally. I just go like, yeah, you weren't even thinking of me. You're thinking of numbers. You are thinking of everything else other than the diversity and how important it is initially. I'm sure there are conversations in between, but there are, I'll completely say like there are so many things involved that I could see how it gets lost. But if they don't have a department who's really advocating for or checking in each level of the production, then it can get lost. So that's where I don't want to say like it's not that it's not accepted. It's just not their first thought sometimes.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Do you think that you mentioned the like if there's not a department or people who are really focused on thinking about that, what are some ways that people as like individuals going into it, like whether they're an actor or a writer, like what are some ways that they could advocate for or show their allyship for people in the community in their roles?
Well, I feel writing in general, writing your own stories, because as actors, often we just go, like, there's nothing out there. I'm going to write my own. And that fire that does come in, and you have that entrepreneur spirit. It's like, fine, I'll do it myself. It's kind of like, oh, you just said that? Okay, go ahead. Do that. Use that, like, I'm not being heard. Or I just don't feel like represented. Like, I see things out there for me. Then there is that thing of go ahead, then write, and not in a bad way of like, go ahead and write, honey. It's like, please write from that fire, which is, hey, I'm going to do this. It's kind of like I did that for myself with like my one woman show coming up, that I really do talk about this. So that's why I'm so excited to talk to you about it, because it just reminds me how I feel into the show. It's a comedic show as well, but it talks about how I subconsciously survived in this business, knowing that I am a minority. I am the 3% that works consistently on Broadway. Like, when I started looking at the numbers, I was like, it's one thing to work in the equity union. It's another thing to be on Broadway, and then I was like, initially when I was going through the math, it was like 3%. I was like, how did I make it here? So to answer your question, what can an actor do? I know that and I'm sure you get it all the time, and we see it with the whole election coming up. The idea that you have to be 1,000% better than the next person, it just is. You got to work so hard and do the work. So I believe that I always put my energy into the, yes, there are moments I cried because I didn't book something, but then I realized I have to work so hard, and I'm glad I do, so that it's never about my talent. They can see me and say, oh, she's talented. She can sing, dance, and she's funny. But we don't see her as the role. And I go, fine. But you can't say I'm not talented or I don't have the skills. I've got the skills. But if you don't see it within this outside appearance, then it's not going to work. I get it. Fine. But it's not because I wasn't talented enough. So I think that's when we've got to really work hard and actually go for just work hard. And having played roles that I got that weren't initially, they did not see the character being Asian, Filipino. They thought they were going to hire not an Asian person. They didn't say it out loud, but they didn't picture it. But when I would come in and do my thing and they go, oh my gosh, they would get excited because they go, oh, we never saw it this way. But on my end, I was like, I only have one way to do things, which is sing, dance, act, to be funny, read the lines, do what's on the page. I can deliver that. So it's so funny to see their reaction going, oh, we never saw that. I thought, I didn't make anything up. I just happened to be in a different box. But we can deliver that. A lot of people who you don't picture playing the role can deliver it. So that is our job. That's what I feel, and what I can control.
Good. And I mean, I think it's great that they let you, like, they can see past that. And I would hope they would see past that for everyone. Did you have a little bit of that with like Reefer Madness? Because I know, like, first of all, I was so excited when I saw that you were in that. It's one of my favorite musicals. I wish everyone would see it because it's so funny. But your role obviously is not a role that would have originally been a minority, because of the small town, like the very presence of the very premise of the musical is that it's very conservative small town people who are now dealing with this like for madness. So having that role and then making it a diversity role, like, was there any pushback with that, or were they just like, no, you're phenomenal, this is great?
And it was interesting, the director is the same director for drag, so I've known him before, but that's not why, like, sometimes I'm like, I know that's not why I got the gig, but I do know that he knows my work. He knows that I can deliver comedy, that I could do all the things. But he did say to me, they're looking for someone to deliver the comedy, but they really want someone who's really sexy. And I was going like, well, then I'm not going to get it. because I love comedy, but I can only, like I didn't know if I could do all that in the capacity that they needed, but I knew I was going to go in, deliver the comedy, and I did. I knew I did, because I do things in auditions that are kind of ridiculous, but it's authentic to me. But it is ridiculous, the things I do in audition rooms, to not just only get attention, but it's more of like I just embody these roles and give myself permission to play. I mess up or whatever, but I I didn't think I was gonna get it. Like I myself was putting myself in the, well, they're not gonna see me doing it. Like I was the one not casting me. It wasn't the people around me. It was my own. Oh, they're never gonna cast me. But because of the comedy was there and everything else was there, they were like, no one else came in doing what you did. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was the one who thought I wouldn't get this. I was the one, not the rest of the world. So sometimes I have to check myself and go like, Jaylane, just do your thing. It's not up to you. Just, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that that's important. I think a lot of people do that to themselves. Like they count themselves out before other people do. Like they think like, oh, because of my race or because of my sexuality or because of all of these things, they're not going to want me. But really, like maybe you're bringing the spice to it that they didn't know they needed till they saw you. And now they saw you, and now they know that's what I needed.
Yeah,
So
and
a little bit about your. Oh my God.
Oh no, go ahead.
Sorry, there's such a delay on my end, but so right now you're in Drag the Musical, which is awesome and so fitting for this. Can you tell us a little bit about the musical, like the premise of it, like how it got started, things like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, it's called Drag the Musical, so it has so many incredible queens in it that are well known in the RuPaul's Drag Race world. Written by Alaska, who's hilarious. And there's other queens, Juju B, Jan Sport, Lux Noir. So, okay, yes, one, we have these amazing queens, and they can sing their faces off. So they're just incredibly talented as well. The costumes are ridiculous, but I do feel like it's really funny, but a lot of people don't realize how much heart there is in this show. So it's a show that reminds me of a sitcom. It's like very funny, joke, 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 joke. But then we do have a piece of talking about how there's a song called "It's So Pretty," and the premise of that song is there's a young boy who comes into, I haven't fully told the story well, but there's a young boy in it who is in this drag club because his uncle is a drag queen. He comes around looking, and his father, who is the brother of the uncle, does not care for drag, of course. But for the 11-year-old kid who looks around and gets kind of excited about all this color and boas and wigs, and he's just so curious of just like, it's so pretty. That's it. It's so pretty. It's not, I'm going to be gay for the rest of my life or whatever. It's such a simple thing. And so in the show, there's a moment, that number within this campiness, and it's really what it is there's two drag clubs, and they're fighting against each other, and you love that. There's fighting, but within there's a little bit of a story about these drag clubs are going out of business, and the only way for them to stay together is they have to figure out how to continue surviving, and there's, I'm a horrible person at trying to explain the story, but it's fun. There's a lot of wonderful songs in it, and it's running off Broadway in New York City, and it's hilarious, but also touching.
Love that. And I can't encourage people enough, if you get a chance to see it. Theater of any type is fun. Drag is even, I love a good drag show. I was actually so upset when they started attacking the drag shows because, like, it's just happiness. Like, why are we trying to get mad at people who just want to be happy? It's just people dressed up, lip syncing to your favorite songs, doing amazing things in heels and costumes. And I'm like, what? And like, what is there to be mad about that? Like, I truly, I'm like, what is your problem?
What's your problem? You know, but uh, almost watching people having so much fun, and even if you don't understand why, you can't help but see the joy in it. But what I love about their show is, of course, it's a musical, so the queens are actually singing. So sometimes they do their shows and they're lip syncing, and they're also fantastic lip syncers. Like, it's so funny. That's an art, but they really
Yeah.
can sing, so it's wonderful.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time this afternoon. Like I said, I know you're in the middle of the show, so you're backstage, but I'm happy to have you here and to just talk about this topic because it is so important to have that representation and for people to feel like they can be seen and that there's another avenue for their creativity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that you thought of me because it's I when you reached out, I really thought, like, I really had to ask myself too of, like, how am I an ally? How am I amplifying voices? Or so it actually just gave me a good Sunday morning for me to really think of, like, what am I doing? Or moments that I am, and I realize, oh, this is amplifying voices, or what do I need to do more? So I actually, like, every day I'm growing, going, what is an ally? Jaylane, what is an ally? How are you doing it? How are you not using your voice? Are you listening? Like, you got me in check today, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. And I did want to ask you though, and even though I don't want to end on a negative note, so I'll have to think of a
Yeah.
positive one after, but like, have you had like actual like negative experiences where you've had to confront someone who due to like their homosexual or not homophobia or their closed off views, like where they have tried to project you or put you in a space where
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah. You know, when those moments do happen, it is unfortunate. I will say it doesn't happen very often because I do surround myself. I really do surround myself with amazing people who I want in my life. Um, so I forget. It could be my little like, everything's fine, everything's wonderful, but like, I do surround myself with great people. So when those moments do happen, it is about coming back to the community, sharing that, crying through it, and then just realizing, yeah, we need to keep doing our work. We need to
Mhm.
keep it going because some days are great. Like, it's all like we're around people who are very accepting. But how do you talk to those who aren't accepted, or who don't accept it, and attack? But I do feel like I have never really yell. Like, when those moments happen, I do a lot of listening. I'll cry later, but I do a lot of listening to the person speak instead of telling them to shut up, shut up, shut up. I ask questions just like you are, so I can let them talk, so I can listen. So I wonder, if I listen, they'll hear themselves saying what saying their thing, the thing that might be hurtful,
Mhm.
and just
Yeah.
watching them go in it. So there's a part of me that finds listening and asking questions without attacking in the moment. I always just, it hurts, but it's also one of those, it's a tool for me to be able to show the person in front of me, that I will listen to you. I hope at one point you will actually listen to us, but I will show you respect and listen to you. I think
Mhm.
that's what I often do. And then later on, I'll digest it or whatever, but it really is, I will try to listen in the moment so that they see I'm a human being,
No.
that, you know?
Mhm. No, I love that because like that is my go-to, and it took me a while to get that, but I ask questions. Like I truly, and I don't know if it's like the interviewing me, but sometimes you need to like lead that horse to the water, right? Like you need like instead of me telling you why your view is wrong or why what you just said makes zero sense, like let me ask you questions so you can say out loud to yourself and realize that what you said just didn't really make sense. And obviously you're not always going to be in the situation to have the opportunity to, but when there are those moments, I absolutely try to take advantage of them because I do know it's also
Yes.
easy to be like, well, just don't engage, don't bother. It's a waste of time. But like, nobody ever grows if nobody engages and doesn't bother. And like, obviously, the person who's like going crazy and yelling and all those things, I'm probably not going to try to have a decent conversation with them. But if
Oh, that's
someone
not
is giving
happening.
me like negative, right? That if they're giving me like negativity and stuff from like a calm place where I feel like, hey, maybe we can have a conversation, I'm willing to take a few moments and have that little bit of exchange. And even if they don't have like a oh hallelujah, my worldview has changed. Like if I just plant that seed of like, well, maybe I'll think about it a little differently. Job done. Like I feel like that was a successful interaction.
That's it. We're not going to fix it right now, but are you open to the possibility of something else? Fine. That's what I love. You are so right.
Mhm. Well, I love that theater is a great avenue for doing that. You know, one of the points we pointed out for number 5 in the thing was that it truly is a space where people can have those conversations. Like maybe you don't want to see this because I think also sometimes we forget, especially because it is so easy to surround yourself with people who think like you and feel like you, which is great. But
Yeah.
we also sometimes forget that other people aren't seeing all those things. Like just because I grew up around like diversity doesn't mean other people grew up around diversity. There are people who
Yep.
don't see people who look like them at all anywhere except for on the TV because everything in their immediate area is so different from them. And so like that representation in theater and in media is crucial. And so thank you for your contribution to that and expanding that and making that happen is appreciated.
Thank you, and thank you for doing this, having conversations.
Thank
Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you very much to everybody who joined. This is part of I Am Me Inc. and it's Allied Amplified. We're here every Sunday at 6 o'clock. If you've missed any of the past ones, they're available on Facebook and YouTube. We had some great conversations with some educators last time, and we talked to someone about their journey to being an ally another time. So we've had some really good conversations. So please, when you get a chance, go take a look at that. We'll be back again next week at 6 o'clock. And also, to learn more about the organization, go to immeinc.org. We still have tickets on sale for the holiday gala. It is on December 14th from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. All right, thank you. And thank you again, Jaylene.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Absolutely. Bye.
Allies Amplified is a live series by IME Inc. that highlights powerful stories of LGBTQIA plus allies.
Not only are they sharing their stories, but also their journeys and insights to foster inclusivity, support, and most of all,